Hello. I want to talk a few minutes about the powers of Congress that are granted in Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution. These powers that are granted specifically in Article 1, Section 8 are what's called delegated powers. These are powers that are granted to the government, the federal government or the national government, things that Congress can legally do under the Constitution of 1787. I would note, first of all, that this list is an extremely short list of powers. That really you can kind of categorize the powers in Article 1, Section 8 into 6 or 7 different categories. And so those powers are, first of all, the power to tax, borrow money, coin money, and to prosecute people for counterfeiting money. These kind of group together in one set of powers involving financial or powers related to um, money. The taxing power in particular is limited in Article 1, Section 9 by a limitation that states that there can't be a capitation tax, which means that there can't be a tax on a person, such as the modern income tax that was legalized by constitutional amendment in the 20th century. So in the original Constitution, the power to tax was limited in that you could not have an income tax, but you could have, the Congress was empowered to tax, it was empowered to borrow money, to coin money, and to prosecute the counterfeiting of the coinage of money. Secondly, the Congress had under Article 1, Section 8 the power to defend the country, the power of defense and having an army and navy and all the sorts of things that go with defending the country. Thirdly, they had power over naturalization, the process by which people become citizens who are not naturally born as citizens. So that process of naturalization or the process of becoming a citizen was in the hands of the Congress, the national government's power of the national government. Fourth, they had the right to control federal property. So anywhere where the land didn't belong to a particular state, but where it was owned by the government of the United States, Congress had the power to essentially administer that land. So, for example, in Washington, D.C., where the Washington, D.C. lies between two states, and it is not part of a particular state, would be federal property, and therefore Congress has the ability to administer that particular area and other areas that the federal government might possess. Fifth, they had the power to operate a post office and to secure a delivery of mail and a mail system that could exist in this country. And then sixth, Congress had the power to regulate commerce, but specifically limited to interstate commerce and international commerce. So what we mean by that internationally, we mean that Congress had the power to regulate what comes in and out of the country, especially, for example, through ports. They didn't want South Carolina to be able to cut a deal with a particular country different from the rest of the country, so they created the ability of the national government to control our relations with other countries with regard to trade. And they also created an interstate commerce regulation in which the states had been prior to the writing of the Constitution, they had been establishing barriers to other states within the structure of the states. They had been establishing barriers and keeping states from moving goods freely through their territory. And so the commerce power given to the United States was essentially given in order to alleviate that situation, to keep the states from making it difficult to pass products through. So, for example, New York, a business in New York might want to sell something to people in Maryland, and Pennsylvania might charge them to move those goods through. Well, the government of the United States, under the Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution, now has the right to stop that from happening, essentially to create a system of free-flowing goods throughout the various states that exist within the United States of America. So the list of powers is, as you will note, very short. Taxing, borrowing, coining money, one group of powers, defending the country, naturalizing new citizens, controlling federal property, operating a post office, and regulating interstate and international commerce. So you might wonder, uh, how did we go from an extremely limited view of what the government can do to what we have now? In fact, Article 1, Section 9 of the Constitution lists a bunch of things that Congress cannot do. And obviously, the 10th Amendment to the Constitution says that if a power is not granted to the Congress of the United States, that or not delegated to them, that it is essentially reserved for the states or the people. So how do we go from these very severe restrictions that existed in our original Constitution to what we have now? Well, as we talk further, you will see that phrases like general welfare and necessary and proper, and in particular the commerce power that's granted in the Constitution, are going to be used and interpreted in such a way to greatly increase the power of the national government. But originally, a very short list of powers granted in Article 1, Section 8 to the Congress of the United States.